Hey guys, Coach Logan here again. I'm going to take a break from the Blitz games, although I'll probably get back to those soon, but I wanted to do another lesson. This topic is on stronger threats, right? So the idea with this is that a lot of times in your games, especially when you're starting out, when your opponent attacks something of yours, your first instinct is, well, now I have to move it or directly deal with this threat somehow. So, I need to get this piece defended or safe or something like that, something that's reactive, right? Well, there's actually another way to deal with a threat, which can really be an important idea in critical positions where there's like a lot of dynamics going on. And that idea is elevating the threat level, making a stronger threat, okay? So your opponent attacks your piece. Maybe you attack a bigger piece. Maybe you threaten checkmate, right? Something that elevates the threat level. So with that in mind, take a look at this position. It's from one of my favorite positions, and going on right here. So we can see that white is threatening to take our bishop on d7. Okay, they have this e-pawn threatening to take our bishop. They also sort of have like an imposing attack brewing on the king side, but directly right now they're threatening to take this. Okay, so I'm going to ask everyone to pause your videos and try to think, what would you play here as black? Okay, and really pause and think for as long as you need, right? When I was solving this, it took me, quite some time. Okay, so even if you want to pause and think for 20 minutes, that's fine. All right, because this is a very hard problem and you get stronger by really struggling with these. Okay, so again, keep your video paused if you need more time, but I am going to move on. So black can make a stronger threat than white's threat of taking this piece, and he can do that by threatening checkmate. Well, how can he do that? Well, so in the game, he played rook e to c3. Okay, he brought this rook over to c3, which threatens to invade on white's back rank. So for instance, if white were to continue with his initial threat of taking our bishop, we now play rook to c1 check. Let's say we trade, check. Now white has to play king takes a2, and there's a forced mate in a couple of moves. Queen a6 check. White has only one way to get out of this, king to b3. Now queen to c4 check, defended by the rook. White has one square to go to, king a3, and now it's checkmate with rook to a1. Okay, so clearly we made a stronger threat than white capturing our bishop. However, after rook e to c3, white by no means has to take our bishop. Instead, they have a very natural move, which is what white played in the game, which is b takes c3. Simply taking the rook, and now your bishop is still under attack. So you might think, well, what did all that accomplish? And that's a good question. So I would say, again, take a look at this position. White is threatening your bishop. They're already up a rook, but they're threatening your bishop. That pawn will get very dangerous on d7. So how can we make a stronger threat than white's threat on our bishop to continue our dynamics? If we have to make a sad move like bishop back to e8, it's almost like just resigning. We're going to be lost. So come up with a stronger threat now than white's. And again, pause your videos if you need time. Truthfully, you should have solved this from the beginning, because in a game, you can't play a move like rook e to c3 and just see what happens, because if it's losing, it's losing. You can't go back. But it's not losing. Black has a move here, so keep it paused if you need more time. But black can now use this open b file to make a threat along the b file, right? Before we did one along the c file, now we move over to the b file with rook to b8. Okay, once again, threatening a checkmate in a couple of moves. For instance, if white were to continue with e takes d7, which was his initial threat, black can play this very nice checkmate, queen to b1 check. White has only one move, which is to take our queen, and now we promote into a queen defended by our rook with a checkmate, right? So let's go back. So instead of taking the bishop, white has another option, which is what he played in the game, which is rook takes a2. Okay, so again, we've now given up a rook, we've given up our pawn on a2, and our bishop on d7 is still being attacked. So is this all just, is Avruk's the person playing black here, is he just, did he just basically think I've lost this game, so let me just give away my pieces one at a time just to keep making moves? Or is there a way that once again we can make a stronger threat than what white's was? So again, I'm going to ask that if you need more time, please pause the videos, because this is a very good exercise, and you don't get stronger just by hearing me tell you the answers. You get stronger by trying to work this out yourself. But in the interest of time, I'm going to keep moving, but you can pause. All right, so black can now make a stronger threat once again by playing this beautiful move, and I think Avruk had to see this from the beginning, but this beautiful move, queen to b3. Okay, now what is he threatening here? So once again, if white were to take on d7, what was the point of this last move? Well, now black can actually play queen takes c3 with check on the king. Because white's king is cut off along the b file, he can't run with his king. He only has one move, rook to b2, and now it's simply checkmate on b2. Okay, so after queen b3, even though white's now been sitting with this threat on the bishop for 3 moves now, and he still can't take it. He has to deal with the threat of queen takes c3. So in the game, white played rook to c1, defending this pawn, but now all of black's, very forcing, elevated threat type moves, all of them have led to a very nice final move for black that can actually deal with the initial threat. He put it off for 3 moves, but now he has a way to deal with it. This move's not particularly difficult, but again, pause if you don't see it. But okay, yes, black can now play bishop takes e6, and the point is he is now forking the queen. This is defended by his queen, and he is forking white's queen, and he's made a battery with the queen over here to now be threatening checkmate on a2. So now it's white who's in huge trouble. This has all of a sudden turned around on white, right? So in the game, I think at this point, white gave up his queen and black went on to win. Black is now ahead in material after all of that. Okay. Well, I guess white does have a rook and a knight for the queen, but that's considered a material disadvantage. Black is ahead here, and being a grandmaster, black went on to win. Okay. So I thought this was just a really good example. It's one of my favorite problems, and what it does again is shows the power of a stronger threat. Okay, if your opponents attack you in a game, yeah, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, maybe 95 times out of 100, you should deal with the threat by getting out or protecting or doing something, kind of reactionary. But sometimes, especially in critical positions where there's like a lot of tactics possibly for both sides, don't necessarily discount the option of, instead of running away from their threat, hitting them with an even stronger threat, because a lot of times that can win you the game. Okay.